Hi, I'm Tinny from minibulldesign, and today I'm out in the factory. It's Sunday. It's about 11 degrees outside and overcast. So I decided to make a batch of 2-ounce remotes because the store only had one left. There was one left in the drawer. So I set out and built 10 of them. Now that I've built the 10, I think I'm going to do the rest of this video on how I made it. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start this project by using a piece of 1.5" plastic that's high impact and is designed to turn well on the lathe. Now it is 1.5". This piece is actually off by 20 thousandths, but it's this one's 1.5" and 20 thousandths. But that dimension is the dimension of the bottom of the 2-ounce remote. So that's a good piece of stock to use because I don't have to turn it to get the maximum diameter. It's already there, and since the only part of it that will show is this very thin edge, it's a good candidate. So let's put it in the chuck, and I'll show you what's required to get all the dimensions. And this has quite a few dimensions in it. I don't know if the camera can pick it up or not. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is face this piece of stock so I have a good square sharp edge to start with. Okay, now there's several steps in here. Look at my camera, see if you can see. I've got 100,000 step for the big opening so the neck of the bottle can go down in. Then I've got another 400 for the depth of the threads, and then I've got another 100 or so in the bottom for the cavity where the air can come in and the fuel can come out, where the nipple's going to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a pilot hole in here and then turn off of that. Now I'm using just a regular 1/2" drill to do that. And sometimes if the hole is a little bigger, I will use just this plunging tool that I've built. And it's carbide, but I ground it on a diamond wheel and reshaped it to plunge, and you will see me use that later. But it's really too wide for this small remote, so I have to drill a pilot hole first. That gives me more room for the plunge cut. So let me get in here, and I've got a 1/2" drill. The quill here has increments in it, 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to go in 7/8 of an inch. It's not hooked up to the eye gauges. I could put an eye gauge on this, but this works pretty well this way. So let's go ahead and make a 7/8 hole in the end of this. Okay, now, because there's 3 dimensions in here, I decided, let me look at my camera, make sure you can see me. I decided the most critical dimension, the one where the threads, it's turned for the diameter of the threads, is the most critical. It has to be very close, within just 1/1000th or so. So I made that cut originally and zeroed my eye gauge at that cut. So I'm going to make this bigger cut up here first, and it's 70 thousandths larger than the thread diameter. So I'm going to move my eye gauge in to just 70. Put my plunging tool / boring bar around, and then I'm going to move into 70 and make a 100 thousandths deep cut at 70. Okay, I'm going to bring the boring bar plunge tool up against the face of the work, zero my eye gauge, move it back just a little bit, start it and make a 100 thousandths cut. Got that. Now I'm going to go into 0, which is the correct diameter for the threads for this particular setup. And I set that at 0 because that was the most critical dimension. And that's going to go in an additional 400 plus the 100 I've already done. So I'm going to leave my eye gauge for the depth alone and just go in to 500.
By hand the last few thousandths.
Okay. So now we have all the steps. I've got the outer step for the neck to go in. I've got the next step for the threads, and I've got the final step down inside where the nipple is going to come out. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, as you can see, there's a step on this, so I'm going to turn this so that it's narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. So that's going to require that I make a 900 thousandths cut, and let me put this back on the stand, and so I have my hands free, and try to zoom back in here. Okay, and now we'll make that cut. Now I've predetermined by measuring that this wall thickness is going to be about an 1/8 inch roughly, but that's going to bring the eye gauge out to 1 inch 811. So I've got to bring this eye gauge to 1,000, 1 inch 811. Okay, I'm going to creep the rest of that in by hand. Get the last few thousandths. Unlock my table. Okay, and there we have it. Now I'm going to turn my tool around and break this edge, and break this edge so they're not sharp. Then we're going to go over and thread it. So let's get that done. Okay, now we're going to go over and thread this. That has to be done before you cut it off, because if you cut it off, you want everything to hang on to when you're threading it, and there's quite a bit of strain on it in that process. Okay, to thread this, I have to slide it into the chuck and tighten it down. Now I have my compound rest turned 29.5 degrees, and I have my carbide 60-degree cutting tool in place. And I have pre-done this and set everything up, changed the gears, so I have the right thread per inch count, and I know exactly on my wheel where I need to be. So I'm going to go in here, back up 100 thousandths, go in, catch that bottom shoulder just above the very bottom. Then I'm going to turn it on, cut in the depth I need for the threads, and then engage the rack and cut my threads. Okay, here we go. And that's all there is to cutting threads in plastic. If this was a ferrous metal, I would have to make that last cut for threads maybe 5-10 thousandths to a time, and it would take probably 10 to 20 passes to do it. Now that's one reason why these are made out of plastic instead of aluminum. And they work just fine that way. There's no need to make them out of aluminum. Okay, now we need to take this over to the bandsaw and cut it off. I could have cut it off in the lathe with a parting tool, But I prefer to do it on the bandsaw because it's quicker and easier. And when you're doing a lot of them, it really makes a lot easier.